Hi guys, I'm Mike and this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to an F1 Worldwide podcast. It's been a little while, it's been 3 weeks because we've had some racing to enjoy, which is fantastic that we've finally had some on-track action to talk about. Obviously on Saturdays it's usually been your quality live stream, but as we have this week break between Hungary and the first race at the Silverstone Grand Prix, we've got the F1 Worldwide podcast back, and I'm very happy to be welcoming on today Ben from BMPHF1. So Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Mike, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem at all, mate. And Ben is one of these, I would say, this influx of new YouTube channels that came up during the break due to coronavirus. And a very fantastic kind of channel coming up. I started off by kind of looking at some kind of corners, mainly on his channel, and then recently looking into more depth the careers of Alex Albon, Charles Leclerc, and Lando Norris. Some great videos, so I'll leave some links in the description down below to go and check out Ben's channel. I definitely would recommend going to check it out. But as usual, it's not just me to kind of plug Ben's channel, although, like I said, definitely go and check it out. We're here to talk about F1 on the F1 Worldwide podcast, and the topic today, Ben came up with it, and I think it's a very good topic to talk about because it's one that, being a 4-time world champion, Sebastian Vettel, it's the big question on everyone's lips. What's going to happen? Where's he going to go? Is he going to go anywhere? So today's topic is Sebastian Vettel, and that is exactly it. Where will he be in 2021 with obviously his Ferrari contract, not being offered one for there. So Ben, I'm going to throw you in at the deep end. You're going to kind of start the discussion off. I suppose the first best question to ask on this: do you think Sebastian Vettel will be in F1 in 2021?
It's looking more and more like it, especially because of the recent rumors that have been going around about him going to Aston Martin. It initially started with stories of him, retiring or going back to Red Bull. But really, Aston Martin were in the picture only until a couple of days ago when German tabloids or like Sky Sports, I think Germany or Mexico, who were kind of, hinting at the fact that Seb and Lawrence Stroll were in talks, and that and then things started to be revealed, such as Sergio having break clauses in his contracts, and all of the evidence that's now being released to the public is making everything seem more and more like Seb will be signing with Aston Martin. But it's still yet to be confirmed. So not everything is a guarantee, and there still are other options for him. I think I remember Günther Steiner saying that they would welcome Vettel if he wanted to race for them in 2021. So I do think there still are a few doors open to him, but we'll see how it goes over the next couple of days.
Yeah, I think that's probably the big influx of where this has come. It would have been, I think, a couple of weeks ago when this recording comes out, of that big news of the rumours seemed a little bit more than that. I don't know about you, Ben, but to me they kind of feel like the Fernando Alonso rumours, in terms of there's this nagging feeling with it that it's not going away. It kind of first got introduced, I think, maybe a month ago, that they were inquiring about Alonso and Vettel for the Aston Martin seat. And now it's kind of got, obviously Alonso went to Renault, Vettel is still vacant, and with how Racing Point have improved this season, and they're very much all focused on the 2022 regulations, they feel like they are going to be one of those teams challenging, or at least putting some serious investment into challenging at the top. And you can definitely see Sebastian Vettel excited by that project, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. And especially because of the whole rebrand. with Lawrence Stroll rebranding the team from Racing Points now to Aston Martin, Seb will definitely provide great marketability for them because of who he is. He's a four-time world champion, and he's a superstar in Formula One. So to have him as the face of your brand is extremely positive for the team. And as you say, Racing Point at the moment are on the up, and with the new regulations coming for 2022, I think Lawrence Stroll is really serious about the car's development and um, how going forward, how they want to see where they want to see themselves in the next 2, 3, 4 years, and so on. And so, uh, the move for Seb will not only benefit him, but also benefit Aston Martin / Racing Point as well.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with that front in terms of the marketability of Seb. I mean, Seb is a full-time world champion, and I think, even though it seems things went off the boil, they didn't quite work out Ferrari in 2017, 2018, and I think his 2019 season is a bit blown out of proportion. He didn't have a great season for Sebastian Vettel, but he doesn't look like he's lost it, and in recent performances in the 2020 season, he's certainly still performing to a decent level, and I think that's it. I've always thought, obviously, the Jordan team, they had backing, but they were almost like a bit of a cult team of a following to go from there. When they changed to Force India and Racing Point, I've just gathered with them. They have support, but I don't think there's like a massive fan base behind them, other than obviously probably Mexico with Sergio Perez. But I'm sure we'll probably get on to talking about that as we go a bit more in depth with the Aston Martin thing. But putting the Aston Martin brand, obviously being from the UK, like Aston Martin is a huge UK brand attached to obviously James Bond. It would definitely bring. I think a lot of people, it's like Mercedes when they came back in the sport. A lot of people like Mercedes cars. A lot of people like Aston Martins. It just naturally brings it there. If you bring a four-time world champion, people start to go, hang on a minute, this team are quite serious about competing in Formula One. So for Lawrence Stroll, he's invested all this money in the team. It makes a lot of sense. But I suppose the outroar of the Sebastian Vettel thing is who he might replace in that team. So I think I'll ask you two questions here, Ben. If you were Lawrence Stroll, who would you partner alongside Sebastian Vettel? And then who do you actually think they will partner alongside Sebastian Vettel?
So if I was in Lawrence Stroll's position, or if I was Lawrence Stroll himself?
Well, I suppose both. If you were in Lawrence Stroll's position, who would you pick? And then if you're Lawrence Stroll, who do you think he will pick?
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Okay, so if I was in Lawrence Stroll's position, I would most likely go for Lance Stroll. In fact, I'd 100% go for Lance Stroll because um, the thing is with Sergio, um, he that 1 year at McLaren, when he was ditched, he didn't really have get the opportunity to adapt to the car, and as a result, he was unfairly just ditched by McLaren essentially, and he's never really had another opportunity in a top team, ever since. And so with Racing Points now on the up, and with the for them becoming Aston Martin next season, and from here it would only be more success, especially with the rebrand and everything. I think Sergio definitely deserves at least to stay there. If not, I really think he should have another shot at a big team, because he never really had the opportunity in 2013 to show what he could really do in a top team. Ever since he went to Force India / Racing Point, as it's known now, back in 2014, he's been pretty much flawless. He's delivered results. He hasn't put a foot wrong. He's been delivering podiums for the team, and so I definitely feel like he needs to be given, or at least deserves to be given another opportunity or another crack at a big team. And if who I think Lawrence Stroll will actually pick is most likely to be Sergio, unfortunately, because um, it all comes down to his last name, and if his last name isn't Stroll, then sorry, you're the one who has to go. And it would be sad to see either of Seb or Sergio to leave Formula One, but unfortunately, it has to be one of them. It's not. Let's. I don't think Sergio will leave Formula One. I think he probably will find a seat somewhere else. But I don't. I can't see Lawrence Stroll, removing his own son um, from the team, and so on that front, I think the driver lineup at Aston Martin next season will be Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. But to be fair, Lance Stroll isn't necessarily a bad driver. It's just that Sergio is, first of all, he's the better driver, and then second of all, he is established within the team. He's been delivering consistent results, and uh, just delivering results for the team, like race after race after race, and he definitely doesn't deserve to be kicked out, but that's the most likely circumstance.
Yeah, I think obviously, we'll slightly drift away from the Sebastian Vettel to talk about this because obviously it was the hot topic and probably the outrage, obviously, myself included. Sergio Perez, he's been one of those not unsung heroes. I think everyone knows how good Sergio Perez is, and I agree that McLaren year, a lot of people go, well, Sergio Perez had a top chance in McLaren in 2013 and he really didn't perform. But I go, well, McLaren were at the start of their decline there for me. Jenson Button is a world champion and he didn't even get on the podium that season. Like, the car wasn't a great car that year, and he was put under a extortionate amount of pressure, and they'd already promised Kevin Magnussen the seat for 2014, and the way that McLaren was being run there wasn't a great way for there, and Sergio then left for Force India, and you're right, he's done things the hard way, but he's also financially supported the team at times and made sure that they kept on the grid with, obviously not him personally, but with the sponsorship that he brings into that team. Like I say, he's consistently overperformed. He's been one of those guys who really extracts the top performance out of the car, and it just feels like, hey, it's a bit of a dick move to get rid of that guy who's done so much for your team, especially as all the mechanics and everything. It's a bit of a family at that factory team. It would kind of feel, it certainly wouldn't put Lawrence in anybody's good books, but if Lance puts in more performances like he did in Hungary, then I think you're right. Lance gets a lot of stick. He's not a bad driver. The difference is night and day at the moment between Perez and Stroll. Perez, there is no argument that he's the better driver. He would get the more better short-term results. But Lawrence has invested a lot in Lance's career, and if he's performing to a competent level, and now that he's got a decent car and showing that, actually this guy can race. He's not embarrassing in himself in that Racing Point car, which we all know is a very good car this season. And he's only 20 years of age still. He's younger than both Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Alex Albon. I think he's even younger than George Russell as well. He's younger than a lot of these up and talent guys. Plus, he's had that 3 years of experience in the sport, working alongside a four-time world champion. It's not the worst thing, but I would feel horrible for Perez if it did happen.
Yeah, 100%. As you say, one of the youngest drivers, I think. I don't know who's actually younger than him. He's 21, so
I think Lando Norris would be the only one.
Yeah, Lando's the only one who's younger than him. So, and he's been in the sport, as you say, for 3 seasons, and his achievements haven't also been, that bad either. The podium in Azerbaijan in 2017, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
and
you're correct.
also in the front row start in Monza, alongside Lewis Hamilton. And so, he's achieved a lot so far in his career for a 21-year-old. And he's been given a lot of stick, as you say. He's been criticized. Obviously, people have been saying that he's just there because of his dad. And to be fair, he is there because of his dad, but he also can drive. He can, deliver, really good performances. Of course, he does have the odd bad performance here and there, but overall, things have been, pretty positive for Lance. And as you say, having a four-time world champion alongside him is only going to benefit him massively, which only gives Lawrence Stroll more reason to bring in Seb for 2021, because at the end of the day, as a father, he will be thinking about his son, and he'd be thinking, what's best, what's the best situation that I can provide for my son. And if that means bringing in a four-time world champion to lead the team into the new era of Formula One cars for 2022, then that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to bring in Seb and expect that he will, lead in terms of car development, and also act as a good mentor for Lance, to help him, understand what it's like to work at the highest level. And it's all it's at the end of the day, it's all, everything is focused solely on Lance's career, because um, I think he still has, as long as he keeps on delivering decent performances, I don't see why, Lance couldn't race for another 12 years, because he definitely has, some talent. And alongside Seb, he can definitely learn a lot from, Sebastian. And as the car keeps improving, and as he keeps improving, because obviously he will change things about his driving, and learn new ways to get better. I think he could, maybe see him like in the next 5, 6, 7 years. We might be, talking about someone who could be fighting for a championship alongside the other young drivers who are, currently in the top teams, like Verstappen, Charles, Alex, and so on, and Lando, so on. So, and once George obviously, gets promoted to Mercedes, he'll be in the mix as well. So, I definitely think everything is working in Lance's favor. Lance's favor at the moment.
Absolutely, and I think what another thing I have to say, because look, I make no ins. I'm a big Sergio fan, and it's you want the best drivers in Formula One, and like I said, there is night and day in terms of difference between Sergio Perez and Lance Stroll, and Perez does deserve the seat, but unfortunately F1 is a political game and a musical merry-go-round of seats, and I guess it's really if they are going to break Sergio's contract, I guess we'll know in the next couple of weeks, because I think it has to be done before the 31st of July. It's reported for them to be able to do that without a massive payout, so I guess we'll know there. But Lance's big fault was his qualifying, and this year he's beating Sergio 2-1 in qualifying, including a wet qualifying, which Lance always has as a strength underneath his belt. And if Lance goes on and beats Sergio this season, then you can say he's probably earned the seat. It's the difference between nobody's beaten, I think, Sergio Perez as a teammate since 2013, which was 20 Jenson Button, I'm sure, on that front, or Hulkenberg might have beaten him in 2014. It may have been one of the two. But yeah, we've talked about his kind of potential options, but moving back to Sebastian Vettel. So Aston Martin seems a very good option. The way that Sebastian Vettel has been talking in interviews, he's been talking about competing. I think he feels unfairly treated by Ferrari. I think he feels he's still, I think a direct quote from him is he feels like he's achieved a lot in the sport and still has more to offer to the sport. So if he's saying that, it leads you to saying an Aston Martin definitely is a very good option for him to do that. But we'll talk about, I think, two different ends of the scale of options for him. I think the other three teams that are potentially options for Sebastian Vettel are, you mentioned one in terms of Haas, Alfa Romeo if Kimi retires and maybe wants to go through that, and Red Bull in their second seat from there. So what would your opinions be on, we'll start off with Haas and whether you think that has any realistic plausibility, Ben?
Yeah, so with Haas, it definitely has some, looking at the current drivers they have, Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen, uh, both, well, especially Roman hasn't really performed as we all expected. Same with Kevin Magnussen. It was only the other day, well, it felt like the other day that he was, entering Formula One, his debut race, and he got a podium in the Australian Grand Prix. And at that moment, we all thought, oh, this driver must be the next big thing. In fact, he was the first driver since Lewis, in fact, in 2007 to score a podium in his debut race. And so that was a really, really big achievement. And so, but since then, his career hasn't really taken off as we all expected. And so, at the same time, we also have to think about how long can we keep drivers like these still in the sport. They're delivering, some decent performances, like in the last race. Kevin, drove really well, had a great performance, had a great race. Um, Also, helped out by the strategy, but nevertheless, Roman had the same strategy, and yet Kevin extracted the better result, and so he definitely deserves props for that. But other than that, there haven't been too many um, moments when you've gone, "Oh wow, that's a really, really an amazing result for Roman or Kevin," and so. Um, it definitely is a possibility for Seb. I feel like if they were to get rid of one of their drivers, it would be Roman. It could just because he hasn't. I don't think he's performed as well as Kevin has over these past. How many years has it been since 2016? Maybe so. These past 4 seasons. Um, and I think it was Gunther Steiner was saying like they'd welcome Seb if the opportunity for him to sign came about, and so I definitely think that's it would be a possibility for him. But then also there's the other side of there's the other end of the spectrum where you could say that the drivers from the Ferrari Driver Academy, who are many at the moment who are thriving, such as Callum Ilott, Mick Schumacher, Robert Schwartzman, Marcus Armstrong. They're all destined to be they're all destined to be Ferrari drivers one day. And so to put them in a Ferrari B team or say Alfa Romeo, a Ferrari junior team, would make a lot of sense because they 100% deserve the chance to race in Formula One, and experience what it's like. And they also have to think about the future of the future of Formula One for their team. And so my take on Haas, they could sign Sebastian, but then I also think they would be looking to the young drivers in the Ferrari Driver Academy as well.
I think that's an interesting point, bringing in the juniors and there. I think a key word for me that probably rules Haas out for him is Sebastian Vettel says that he wants to compete. And with Haas, they're just, in the way that their model is at the moment, I can't see a consistent competitive build that would attract Sebastian Vettel at this time in his career. He might have seen someone like Roman Grosjean, who was very competitive in the Lotus at the back end of 2015 season and probably would have been a highly sought after driver at that. Made the big move to Haas, and it hasn't worked out for both of them there. I'll defend Kevin Magnussen a little bit in there, in terms of I think he is an underrated driver, and it's very hard to stand out in a car that's not been good. And after 2017, he's beaten Roman Grosjean in both 2018 and 2019. Admittedly, 2019 Grosjean had a few mechanical issues as well, but it's a little bit. It is tough in especially such a poor season they had in 2019 stand out, and I think especially that 2019 season would definitely put Sebastian Vettel off. The Ferrari Juniors is an interesting one because Haas have always wanted that more experienced guys, because they turned down Charles Leclerc. They've got Louis Delatraz obviously as their test driver, but maybe they'd promote him. Yeah, like Callum Ilott, Robert Schwartzman and Mick Schumacher are the standout three who are really pushing for the F1 seat this year. And it would be interesting to go from... It would be a change in philosophy for Haas to go for one of them, but all three look very good and worthy of a shot, so that could be an interesting one. So I suppose Haas and Alfa Romeo kind of combining to two, because Alfa, especially with a seat owned by Ferrari, one would definitely be, and I think most likely, Robert Schwartzman to come in, and probably Giovinazzi seen by the wayside. But I think with the way that the relationship has deteriorated with Ferrari, I don't think being in an Alfa Romeo would appeal to Sebastian Vettel at all. What do you think?
So with Alfa Romeo, no, I don't think that it would appeal to him. Especially, it's essentially him, going from the Ferrari, the senior team, to just the team that is it's the same car but just a little bit worse, essentially. To put it bluntly, that's essentially what it would be doing. It would, as you say, he wants to compete, and that would completely defeat the objective of what he wants to achieve in Formula One. With the interview he was talking on with Martin Brundle in the pre-race show for the Hungarian Grand Prix, he was saying that he wants to be in Formula One. He doesn't want to be in Formula One for the sake of being in Formula One. He wants to achieve something. He wants to his time in Formula One to have meaning, and I think that will only come at a team where he will be competitive and be fighting for potential podiums, maybe, and also have. I think he also wants to have a clean slate. I don't think he wants to go to a team that have any associations with Ferrari, so that's why I wouldn't see him moving to a team like Haas or Alfa Romeo, because they still have ties with the senior team that he just left, and as I said before, it would completely defeat the purpose of him, leaving the team. He might as well have, signed for another however many years he wanted to with the senior team, because he would have been in a better position than if he had gone to one of the junior teams. And so, yeah, the same with Alfa Romeo as Haas.
Yeah, no, absolutely on that one. And I think he would have signed on with Ferrari because it was his childhood dream. But with that revelation of the contract not being offered to Sebastian Vettel, I think that definitely leaves a bad taste in the mouth for him. And I don't think many people in F1 would probably want him to kind of stick with that connection to Ferrari. But we move on to probably the last team rumoured with Sebastian Vettel. And that is Red Bull. Obviously, currently that second seat is in the hands of Alexander Albon, who's had a mixed start to the 2020 season. I know I've publicly been one, and I think Red Bull have let their juniors down in Gasly and Albon by promoting them into the high pressure of a top team too early. Very rarely do they like to go outside the bubble. Well, not since probably signing Mark Webber have they signed a driver that was outside the Red Bull bubble. So Sebastian Vettel fits the mould. He's maintained a good relationship with Red Bull since then, but is it a case of never go back? Because obviously, will it be that times of can he emulate the success that he had first time round with them. But what do you make as an option for Red Bull for Sebastian Vettel, Ben?
Yeah, I think what your last point was, quite interesting because I think a lot of people will, measure his success if he were to have a second stint at Red Bull. They would measure it against his years in 20 from 20. Actually, it was from 2009, but we'll take it as from 2010 to 2013, his four, where he won his four championships, and so. But then, Red Bull have completely changed since then. They're no longer the best team in Formula One. Mercedes at the moment are the team to beat, and they also have a young, very, very talented driver in Max Verstappen, who I'm sure they would favor him over Sebastian because essentially he is their future, and so yeah, that's definitely a really good point. And initially, it was Helmut Marko who was given an order by Dietrich Mateschitz. I don't know how to say his name, accurately, but
that sounds a very good attempt at it, mate. Probably better than what I would do. So we'll go with that.
But he was actually given the order to bring what Dietrich said, the lost son, Sebastian, home to replace Alex, and he said that he would kick Danny Kvyat out of AlphaTauri, and then have Alex move back down to AlphaTauri as well. And I just when I read that, I think that was I think on maybe the 9th of July, just after the Styrian Grand Prix, or sometime around the Styrian Grand Prix, and I just thought that would be such a ridiculous move considering Alex only had half a season to actually show how he could perform in a big team, and of course you're still adapting to the car, you're trying to um, fit in within the team, and I feel it takes more than just half a season for that to happen. And as you said, the start of this season, it's been that it's been good, but a bit of misfortune in the Austrian Grand Prix, and then I feel like from there his confidence has really been knocked, because he at the time the last two out of the three races he was in position to score a podium, and even in the Austrian Grand Prix he was um, actually on pace to take the race win. But he obviously collided. Well, Lewis collided with him in both races, and so I feel like that's dented his confidence quite a bit. But with the with a really strong performance in Hungary last race, I feel like that's going to it sent a message to Red Bull saying that I'm still I'm still here. I'm still delivering results. And I think today there was a tweet I saw from Tomo, and he was saying something like uh, to say that Alex is having a Gasly season just makes no sense. And he literally listed the finishing positions of Gasly over his first half of the season at Red Bull compared to Alex's time at Red Bull from the time he stepped into the car up until now. And so I thought that was a very solid um, bit of information from him, because Alex has been relative to Max. Obviously, the gap's still quite a big gap, but he's nowhere. He's not as slow as Gasly was, to put it plainly. And so I wouldn't be happy if Red Bull decided to drop Alex, especially after the short time he's been there, and the performances he's given, because he has put in really really solid performances, um, and is at the moment a very he's a great complementary piece to Verstappen, because Verstappen is their number one driver, but Albon still provides those P5, P6 finishes, which ultimately help them in the constructor championship, and so I feel like if they were to bring Sebastian back into the Red Bull, they just wouldn't. I don't think the driver dynamic would work too well, because if we look at a history of teammates that Sebastian has had, where um, he's not the number one driver. We look back to 2014 with Daniel Ricciardo, and when he pretty much uh, took the Red Bull by the horns, and hustled three podiums out of it that year, and no, not three podiums, three wins actually, and I feel like that must have dented Seb's confidence quite a bit, because the team were backing Daniel, and I think he felt like um, that that wasn't the place for him, because he wasn't being given the preferential treatment that he was looking for. And so obviously he went to Ferrari after Fernando decided to leave for McLaren, and since then, when he was partnered by Kimi Raikkonen, and Kimi wasn't necessarily too much of a threat to Seb throughout those how many seasons was it? 3 or 4 seasons. And then when Charles Leclerc came in for 2019, those issues that had uh, those issues that had come up in the 2014 season with Daniel Ricciardo, those were almost like repeated, if you could say that, in 2019 with Charles Leclerc, because Charles was I'd say he was faster in terms of qualifying than Seb. I think Seb was a little bit more, intelligent with his racecraft and everything, and because he's a more experienced driver. But in terms of raw speed, I think Leclerc pretty much had the better of Sebastian, and that I don't think went down very well with Seb, because he he felt like he was established within the team. He was the number one driver, and yet Leclerc was being given all this love, and by Ferrari, and it just didn't work out for him. And so again, now he's leaving. He's leaving another team, and for him to go back to Red Bull, I wouldn't. It would feel like it would just be another situation like 2014 and 2019, where he's he's not the clear number one driver in the team, especially um, with a driver like Max Verstappen, who, as we all know, is probably going to win multiple championships in the coming years, and also I think it was the other day, Christian Horner was saying, uh, was asked about it, and he said it's a definite no. But then rumors came up again about the same topic. Seb still could the door still could be open to Seb to go to Red Bull, and so um, yeah. In summary, in my opinion, I feel like he shouldn't. Um, Albon shouldn't be dropped, and Seb, I wouldn't recommend the move for him, because it's one way traffic.
It would be a risk for Seb, I think, definitely. Red Bull, but although different to those situations in 2014 and 2019, he was the established driver at that stage of his career, and probably felt like he had enough reputation and stuff in the team. Obviously, every racing driver feels like they deserve to have the lead status and believe they're the quickest, and for the team to be backed and supported behind them. And I think Seb, with obviously 4 world titles behind him, felt that he deserved it only after one bad season in 2014, and in 2019, despite Charles obviously having this natural pace, it wasn't. It was a difficult one. The car wasn't great in terms of how it fitted to Seb in 2019. And that definitely, I think, plays a little bit into it, and it favoured the first half of the season. Definitely favoured Charles Leclerc more, and then when it got more to Seb style in Singapore, I think you saw a change in situation and dynamic there. I think Charles struggled in that later second half of the season, so it is difficult. He would know what he's going into. In terms of the Alex Albon regard, I know you are a fan in terms of it, and I would say I've probably been one of the more vocal ones. Look, coming from I say obviously I follow Ferrari, but as F1 is more important to me there. And what we've got in F1 is a problem at the moment, that we've got Mercedes being this incredible team and incredible performance. Ferrari seem to be doing their best to kind of screw things up and just implode internally from trying to screw things up. Red Bull are the next best team next to it. And Albon, I have no doubt that in the future he may go on and even be a very top driver, like you spoke about earlier in the podcast of maybe Lance having the experience of going. But I don't think he can learn his trade in that Red Bull seat. We're talking about one of now the top 4 seats in the sport, between two Red Bull seats and 2 Mercedes seats, because Ferrari have dropped off the cliff. And is Alex Albon at the level that he should be at one of those seats? If you compare Mercedes in their time in the turbo hybrid era, they've had Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, who are both very experienced by the time in there, can massively help on car development, and obviously their performances can push each other on. And then Valtteri Bottas had years, 3 or 4 years, I think, at Williams by the time he joined Mercedes. He was an experienced junior anyway. I think he came into F1 fairly late. So there's a lot of that in there. I just think Albon, he needs to be in AlphaTauri alongside Gasly to just learn F1, learn how to be a good driver in F1 without the pressure and spotlight that every week everyone's looking at your performances. And at the moment, yes, he's doing better than what Gasly did, but that's not the person you need to compare him to. You need to compare him to how is he doing compared to Daniel Ricciardo, and he's way off, because Daniel Ricciardo would challenge Max Verstappen in qualifying. Yes, obviously Ricciardo was far along his career compared to where Albon is, but that's the issue. And if they went for Sebastian Vettel, I just think it's a big team move. They back themselves to manage that relationship. They have 2 great drivers. They fight, but they had it in Seb was clearly better than Mark Webber, but they had it in driving them forward. The big teams have great drivers within their team, and even the Bottas and Barrichellos of the world, they weren't world champion materials, but they were still great drivers within their own right. And I think Albon could potentially be to that level, and Gasly as well in himself, but they were rushed too quickly. And I think Red Bull, with Albon is in that seat longer than this season, have a danger of ruining. And Albon's a lovely guy. He's probably one of the nicest guys in F1. But I think if he stays in that Red Bull seat, with the way that being in a top team kind of chews you up and spits you out if you don't hit the high levels that are expected of you, it could ruin the poor lad's career. And I think a lot of that sits on Red Bull's shoulders. So that is why, if Aston Martin doesn't work out, I do think Red Bull is a very appealing option to Vettel, because he's a full-time champion. He's a ready-made. He still competes at a very high level. And even though Max won't, it's geared around Max, the whole philosophy of Red Bull in terms of their downforce and aerodynamics suits Sebastian more as a driver as well, and it probably looks as a decent option. But I don't know in terms of that. I think, like you said, Aston Martin does feel the most likely option, and being in F1 the way that Sebastian's talking, unless all the contract talks fall flat on their face, I think it does look like he will stay in F1 in 2021.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And as you say, one more point to add about the whole him at Red Bull. I feel like the environment that they have at Red Bull is much more suited to Sebastian. Ferrari were driven, as I normally say, they're normally driven by their emotion and their passion as their fan base, and also within the garage. But there's also a lot of politics that go on within the team, and that's the environment that's created as a result of that. I don't think what it has a negative impact on Sebastian's driving. And so he I feel like in seasons like 2017 and 2018, all that, everything going on at Ferrari, like internally, towards the end of the year, caused those incidents like in Singapore, and in what was the other race? We saw a lot of unforced errors from Seb essentially, and so um, at Red Bull he will have that environment of everything will be um, it won't be as emotion driven like at Ferrari, and it was basically one of the reasons why he won four world championships. That environment that is created um, within Red Bull, and so yeah, and regarding him moving to Aston Martin, as you say, with everything that's been going on, and with Sergio's contract and the talks that have been going on behind the scenes, it definitely looks more and more like we will see Sebastian on the grid for the 2021 season.
So, I think very good points there of Ben, and especially I think the Red Bull philosophy suits Seb a lot more. And I think what has to be said, I'm pretty sure Red Bull, they would have naturally had changes over the years, but it's pretty much the same team that he left back at the end of the 2014 season. So there won't be too much time in terms of getting used to new mechanics. Like we said, he's always maintained a good relationship, even at his time with Ferrari, with the Red Bull guys. But I'll end this with this question to you, Ben. Do you think that it's a good idea that Sebastian Vettel stays in F1, or do you think he needed a sabbatical of like a year out of the sport, like Kimi did, to then come back? Or do you think he's now hungrier than ever because he's frustrated that it didn't work out at Ferrari, and he talks like a man who's like, I'm not done yet. I want to still achieve something within this sport. When he got that fourth world championship, it wasn't Lewis Hamilton that people were talking about beating Michael Schumacher. It was Sebastian Vettel. And at 33, 2 years behind Lewis Hamilton, if everything works out, you could argue that at the age of 35, he would have the same amount of championships as Lewis Hamilton if somehow we managed to win the title in 2021 and 2022. I think 2021 would be very unlikely because Mercedes look like they've built a rocket ship, basically. But yeah, do you think it's a good idea Sebastian Vettel staying?
It's a really difficult question because if he were to take a sabbatical, then who's to say that the seats that he was looking that were available in 2020 wouldn't be available? The seats that were available for 2021 wouldn't be available in 2022. And it would also, the sabbatical would help him to get his mind right and to also have a bit more family time. I'm sure Seb is a very he's a very private person and he likes to spend time with his family as well. And so those are the positives that come with the sabbatical. But then, as I said, just a minute ago, that the opportunity to go to Aston Martin, I think, is there right now, and I think he has to take it because the past 3 seasons at Ferrari have been difficult for him, and he needs to have a fresh start, as he's been saying. He wants to start a clean start afresh, and Aston Martin is pretty much the perfect place for him to do exactly that. And so in my opinion, I feel like it would be best for him to move to Aston Martin for 2021 instead of taking the sabbatical, because it will not only provide that fresh start that he's talking about, but also mean that he won't have the that year out might things might happen, and it might mean that he's not able to race into 2022, and also maybe he needs to stay in the car to be in the flow of being in a Formula One car, to perform well. And coming off the back of 2020 and going into 2021 straight away in a new car, newly branded team, everything is pretty much different for him, and it would definitely benefit him. I feel like it would benefit him a lot more than if he were to take a sabbatical. And so, yeah, those are my thoughts. The opinion.
Yeah, I think especially as 2022 is very rumoured to be, it'll definitely bring the drivers a lot more into play, which, you know, obviously F1 is an engineering series as well. It's also about kind of finding these innovations, building technologically brilliant cars. But, you know, a lot of fans, they attach themselves to teams, but a lot of fans attach themselves to drivers, and they want to see their best drivers do well and on a more even playing field than what the kind of discrepancy is between cars currently. So Sebastian Vettel was a 4-time world champion, would probably back himself to go, hey, I'm probably going to be pretty good in 2022, or at least be competitive from then. So if he's in 2021, he at least gives a chance to kind of establish himself in a team like Aston Martin, like Red Bull. If it happens, like we said, I doubt it would be Haas or Alfa Romeo on that front. And, you know, it gives him a chance to go that. The only thing that I think if he was taking a sabbatical and waiting a year would be on the gamble that, say, Lewis Hamilton wins the championship this year, wins the championship in 2021, which isn't beyond the realms of possibility and is probably more likely than not. So he then beats Michael's records, becomes an 8-time world champion and the most successful driver statistically in F1 history. He's already cemented his name amongst the greats of all time, but, you know, that would do it even further. Would Lewis walk away at that point and go, okay, 2022, it's now your new generation, you can do your job, and Seb to gamble and go, would a Mercedes seat be available for me there? That would be the only thing that I could see would be appealing to a sabbatical. But I think it's why he's behind the scenes in F1. There's always conversations behind closed door, I'm sure, go from there. But I think Sebastian Vettel on the grid, experience seems an underrated commodity in Formula One at the moment, and you can't kind of be quick to get rid of your world champions, because very few people have done it in the sport, and very few people have achieved in the sport what Sebastian Vettel has done. But yeah, it's been a great chat, Ben. I've really enjoyed this. It's fascinating talking about the figure of Sebastian Vettel, because it's been such a difficult time at Ferrari, and it's such a difficult time not knowing where he'll be next season. But I've really enjoyed this, so thank you so much for coming on, mate.
Yeah, same here, man. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. And like I said at the start of the podcast, guys, please do go and check out Ben's channel. Like I said, there will be links in the description below to a few of his videos. I definitely recommend it. One of the kind of rising stars, should I say, of F1 YouTube. What are you on as well, mate? You kind of rocketed up through the subs when your Alex Albon video kind of plummeted. You must be nearing that kind of 1,000 sub mark.
Yeah, I think we passed 600 recently. So yeah, hopefully 1,000. Yeah, coming soon. Like you guys have been smashing it as well. You know, you've been around for, you know, a lot longer than I have, and you've kind of, you know, grinded your way to those 1,000 subscribers, and 100% deserved. You know, you guys produce great content, post a lot more frequently than me, and so yeah, if there are any of my subscribers who watch this video, definitely subscribe to F1 Fanatics as well, because they're smashing it at the moment as well.
Mate, thank you very much for the kind words. So just basically there, check out both our channels, and if you like them, drop us a subscribe. It does help us out. It's nice, and we obviously both enjoy creating content, because at the end of the day, we're both F1 fans. We love talking about F1, and we love engaging with you guys listening and talking about it, and that's what we want to hear in the comments down below. Obviously, me and Ben have had our chat about thoughts of where Seb might go. Obviously, within that, there's been discussions about the driver lineups at Aston Martin, the driver lineups at kind of Red Bull and stuff, the Ferrari Juniors. Where might they go? Because it's probably going to be 3 of them finishing in the top 3 of Formula 2. So they're all well. I think Robert Schwartzman has the points anyway, but Mick and Callum would then qualify for enough points to make it into Formula 1, and it will be very intriguing and interesting to see how that plays out. But I hope you've enjoyed the podcast today, guys. And again, thank you, Ben, for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
No problem at all. And that's it from us. So for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.